A fully licensed and well-practiced, established doctor botched surgeries, paralyzed friends, and murdered patients. These all sound like the plotline to a daytime soap opera, but it's not. This is the story of the greed that led one doctor to destroy 33 patient lives, their families, and the lack of intervention within the medical community. Were these acts preventable? What possesses a man to go from neurosurgeon to Dr. Death? When a doctor is performing below par, it is the responsibility of the hospital to take action. When Christopher Dunch was committing these heinous acts, a line could have been drawn. Mistakes were made, if they could have even been called that. But when the hospitals did not do their due diligence, these actions continued. Baylor Plano was the stage in which Dr. Dunch acted out these life-ruining surgeries. To fire him or to let him resign, the option they chose cost dozens of people their livelihood.
Baylor Plano was the hospital that let Dr. Dunch resign rather than firing him. They failed to report him to the State Medical Board or the National Practitioner Data Bank, which could have made it impossible for him to find a job. Instead, they gave him a letter that implied he left on good terms, which saved themselves a lot of legal fuss and red tape, and instead let it be someone else's problem. If they had fired or reported him, they would have gotten legal bills, and there was the fear of being sued in a culture of silence. A watchdog group found that more than half of the hospitals in the country have never reported doctors. After Baylor Plano, Dr. Dunch would go into more hospitals and harm more patients. Dr. Henderson talked to the president of Baylor Plano, who was uncomfortable talking about Dunch and refused to do so. On December 10, 2014, the state fined Baylor Plano for $100,000. However, 1 year after, the notice and the fine were withdrawn for confidential reasons. Practitioners in Dallas were calling the Texas Medical Board and reporting him. Cases that are this serious and brought up multiple times by multiple practitioners should be taken care of immediately rather than waiting the 60-day review period through the medical board.
When the hospitals did not take a stand and allowed him to move from place to place and practice privately on patients, it was up to doctors around him to investigate and really look into what Dunch was doing. One victim of Dr. Death survived and finally had her chance to take a stand. Unfortunately, she could not do so literally as he botched her spinal surgery. We had the opportunity to speak with her and tell her side. Left paralyzed at 72, unknown to her, after unbearable pain so horrendous even the strongest of narcotics could not suppress. So what really happened? What went wrong?
Hi guys, welcome to K's show. Today I'm here with Mary Eford. We're going to be talking about the surgery that went horribly wrong with Dr. Dunch, also known as Dr. Death. Hi Mary, how are you?
Hi, good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you for asking. A little nervous today, but I'm good. So tell me a little about why you felt you needed the surgery done.
So I had been having constant back pain for a while, and it's gotten to the point where it interrupted my daily life and my daily routine. So I started looking for surgeons and a way to fix the back problem, and I found a surgeon, and that's how it started.
So why did you feel confident that Dunch was the best surgeon for the time?
I had no reason not to believe that Dunch was the perfect surgeon. He had stellar reviews. I looked him up on the internet. I talked with him. I met with him in person. He was so knowledgeable. He answered all my questions. He just seemed perfect.
So you felt like he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, he was so knowledgeable. Every question my husband had, every question I had, he knew it. He knew exactly what he was going to do, and he was so confident in the surgery.
Oh man. So how did you feel that morning that the procedure was going to happen?
Things were a little off. My surgery was scheduled for 10 a.m. and by 10:45 he still hadn't met with me.
Wow.
So things were not feeling right, but I went through with the surgery. I didn't know any better.
Oh man. So did Dunch say anything about why he was late? Did he give any reasons?
He didn't give any reasons. To my knowledge, he just came in and we went through with the surgery.
Alrighty, so what were your first thoughts waking up from the surgery?
The pain was unimaginable. I woke up, I couldn't wiggle my toes, I couldn't roll over in bed.
Wow.
I was shouting at the nurses. I needed pain meds. I just couldn't breathe. It was so bad. And I just remember thinking I never wanted to see him again. How could he do this to me?
After the first surgery with Dr. Dunch, Dr. Robert Henderson performed the second surgery on Mary Eford, which is where he saw a screw sticking up in the spinal cord. Dr. Henderson found 3 holes poked in the bones of the spinal column, where Dr. Dunch had tried and failed to insert the screws. He noticed that one screw jabbed directly in the spinal canal, which amputated a bundle of nerves that controlled one leg and her bladder. Dr. Henderson found out that Dr. Dunch was not even operating in the right place, it was the wrong disc. A quote from Dr. Henderson was, "Anyone with a minimum amount of training would have hesitated to go forward with the next step when they realized they were lost, or could this possibly be an imposter claiming to be a surgeon?"
Dr. Dunch was the first doctor to be convicted for aggravated assault related to the care provided in his operating room. His license was revoked in June 2013. He was arrested and charged with 5 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and 1 count of injury to an elderly individual in June 2015. Prosecutors had identified nearly 36 people who had been harmed under his knife. Dunch was sentenced to life in prison in February 2017. He appealed his sentence 3 times and were denied all 3 times. There are policies in place to prevent this type of behavior again, but it would be on the hospitals and more types of oversight to report surgeons.
Now that years have passed by now, and I'm sure you've known by now that he's sentenced to life in prison, how does that make you feel? Do you feel like justice was served?
I was so angry for a long time. My life changed so much. I was independent, I could drive, I could go and do things I wanted, but after that surgery, I became dependent on people and rides and everything. I just remember feeling so upset and mad at him, but now it's just I'm happy he's sentenced. I hope this never happens again. I hope it's a lesson to the doctors, to the hospitals, just that this doesn't happen again and doesn't affect the lives that it has. And I was lucky. I still have my life. People lost theirs.
Dr. Dunch's behavior, drug use, and intent on injuring and murdering his victims was a prime example of strain theory and his attempt to escape and retreat from reality. He used rational choice to commit these crimes at the risk of still being caught. He used his licensing to continue to act in the way that was unsafe, deliberately acting against the doctor's oath to do no harm. Dunch used alcohol and prescription drugs during the procedures and would have habits of cocaine use with 2 to 4 days at a time as his attempt to retreat from reality. One complaint even said he was a drug-taking machine. In relation to retreatism, he used the following drugs: Loratab, Xanax, and Oxy for his own use, which affected his performance during surgeries. When it comes to the ones we trust to help heal our pain and sickness are the ones who harm us the most, who can we turn to? There are processes and prevention tactics that are set in place by law to be our safety net. These hospitals provided a safe place for this man to act deviantly and allow him to resign instead of firing him and revoking his license to protect its patients. Baylor Plano was a part of a huge medical system and suffered severely because of their inability to step in. The lack of oversight and the lack of punishment says a lot about the organization's outlook, culture, and structure.